I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Welcome to Not My Reality. This one here is going to be about one of America's historically richest towns, and it's also historically one of the most racially segregated towns. Before we get to that, let's take a ride in a Wayback Machine to a time in America where there were sundown towns. No, that's not a town where everybody goes in at 8 o'clock and there's no partying. What is a sundown town? Why is it even called that? Well, for decades, there were cities and towns that were all white on purpose. These communities are known as sundown towns. This practice of keeping others out, it started after slavery and it ran through the 40s, the 50s, 60s. At the peak of the exclusionary practice in 1970, an estimated 10,000 communities across the United States kept out African Americans through force, law, or custom. Many sundown suburbs also excluded Jewish and Chinese Americans and other minority groups. There are 40 towns listed as possible or probable past sundown towns in Connecticut, and Darien, Connecticut is one of those. Support the channel. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell. Please help get us out there into the algorithm. Yep, algorithm. If you don't have a sense of humor, go. Welcome. Is this my reality? Is this your reality? Darien, Connecticut, one of the most affluent communities in all of America. But was it a sundown town? Is it still a sundown town? Well, the answer to the first question is yes. Darien was definitely a sundown town. Now, Darien is a coastal town in Fairfield County, Connecticut, in the United States. For those of you who don't know, it's got a population of about 21,000 people and a land area of just under 13 square miles. Sundown towns like Darien were municipalities that prevented African Americans or other minorities from lingering after dark. Linger longer. Darien and other small towns kept out not just black people, but Jews, Catholics, Greeks, Italians, Indians, even trade unionists and gays. They used violence, intimidation, and restrictive covenants and really shady mortgage practices. Whites only within city limits after dark reads the faded road sign, an artifact on display at the Tubman African American Museum in Georgia. The sign was found outside one of Connecticut's many sundown towns. In 1905, restrictive covenants began appearing in property deeds. They typically stated, quote, "No portion of these premises shall ever be sold to or be occupied by anyone other than members of the white or Caucasian race." I shit you not. Then they often added, "Nothing in the foregoing shall preclude live-in servants." Right, so they definitely needed their servants. A 1940 deed for a development called High Ledge Homes in West Hartford, Connecticut said, "No person of any race except the white race shall use or occupy any building and or any lot." The deed allowed for one exception for people of a different race though: the owner's employees. Oh my God. All across the United States, these sundowner towns, well, they had different ways of telling outsiders that they were not welcome in their town, their suburb, or their neighborhood. The first was newspaper advertisements. They were warning racial and ethnic groups to stay away and inviting in white homeowners. They had road signs on the edge of town. And these things, I can't even repeat what they said here. They had public protests. They had demonstrations, which often turned violent. They had a sundown siren, which sounded each day at 6 o'clock saying, "Get the out of my town." They had harassment. There were lynchings. there was mob violence, all targeting racial and ethnic groups. In Darien, Connecticut, the practice of stopping and questioning black motorists, it was an open secret in town. Witnesses who grew up in Darien said whenever an African American was spotted in town, the cops were called to check them out. They often stopped them, questioned them, harassed them. About the only black people not harassed were those who were obviously domestics, yep, the workers again. They were waiting at bus stops along Route 1. Darien, Connecticut, they also didn't let Jews spend the night within their borders either. In 1947, there was a film that came out, The Gentleman's Agreement, co-starring Paul Revere's descendant, Anne Revere. It exposed the practice. Gregory Peck played a reporter pretending to be Jewish to write a story in anti-Semitism. It was based in New York City and Darien, Connecticut. The civil rights movement started to change all that with laws against racist policies. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 prohibited housing discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, family status, or national origin. But is it still going on today? Well, yes and no. We found an article from, it was 1986, but it states, no black families live in Darien, and the number of Jewish families is small. In part, this stems from the high cost of housing and the perception of Darien as a homogeneous community unfriendly to members of minority groups. Quote, people with money, black or Jewish, well, they can buy in Darien, said Reverend Melvin A. Hoover, the executive director of the Council of Churches and Synagogues for Lower Fairfield County. But in reality, blacks with that kind of income are not looking to go to Darien. They don't feel like being pioneers. They don't want to be unicorns. A student at Darien High School, Caroline Kaminsky, raised the issue of homogeneity in an article she wrote last year for a Darien newspaper. The lack of diversity is causing a form of racial prejudice, she wrote. Quote, when many people see a black person on the street in Darien, they can't help but wonder, what is he or she doing here? Some even assume the black is there to steal. I'm going to leave that right there. So what's the verdict? Is Darien still a sundown town? I wouldn't call it a sundown town anymore. Times have changed from the days when it banned Jews and blacks from town, which it did well into the early 60s and 70s, as evidenced in the film The Gentleman's Agreement. But it's still very white, as is much of Lower Fairfield County. Actually, if you look into it, Darien has a 1.5% black population. Do with that what you will. Most of the conservatism that you see in Lower Fairfield County, though, it's fiscal rather than social these days. I doubt you'd be met with hostility being a hyphenated American. These days, that part of the state, people don't judge you by your race anymore. They judge you by your bank account. Dollar bill, y'all. But we know how that's all set up, too. What say you? Leave a comment down below. It's amazing and disgusting we used to be, and some of us still are. Oh my God, I feel like I need a shower. Let's get the fuck out of here. Damn.
Dream. The sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.